Communion is the second sacrament, the second mysterious practice that Jesus commanded his followers to observe. The church has actually given 3 different names to this meal, and each of them teaches us something about its significance in our lives. Those names are the Lord's Supper, Communion, and the Eucharist. Let's look at each of those in turn.
The Lord's Supper is a name that causes us to look backwards, to the meals past. It reminds us that the first supper before Jesus was crucified, when he sat down with his disciples and said, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Luke 22:19.
You see what Jesus said there? Do this in remembrance of him. Look to the past, to what happened before, to Jesus, and to his sacrifice. The bread, after all, symbolizes his body, and the wine or juice symbolizes his blood. Every time we receive the Lord's Supper, we intentionally remember in a physical way the sacrifice Jesus made to rescue us from sin and death. The gospel, the good news of Jesus, is that our salvation with God has already been accomplished. The victory has already been won. That's why we look to the past.
Communion is the second name of this sacrament, and it focuses us on the present, what is happening right now. Communion is not just a symbol of the past. There is also something happening right in the moment we receive it. Jesus said, "This is my body and this is my blood." Somehow, mysteriously, Jesus is present in the elements on the table, and that he is encouraging us to receive him in our own bodies and souls. At the table, God communes with us.
And we commune with each other and with Christians around the world. In 1 Corinthians 11, the Apostle Paul actually comes down on the Corinthian church because the way they practiced communion exacerbated divisions among them. He says that's exactly the opposite of the purpose and meaning of the meal. This is what he says. In the first place, I hear that when you come together as a church, there are divisions among you. And to some extent, I believe it. No doubt, there have to be differences among you to show which of you have God's approval. So then when you come together, it's not the Lord's Supper you're eating. For when you're eating, some of you go ahead with your own private suppers. It's only truly communion, Paul says, if the church is united.
Wow.
That's true because in the present moment, communion unites us with God and with each other. And if we're treating some of our brothers and sisters better than others, we have to wonder whether we're really united with either.
Finally, the last name for this sacrament is the Eucharist. That word comes from the Greek word that means give thanks. The name Eucharist teaches us that in this meal, we not only remember what Jesus accomplished for us in the past, and we not only embrace his presence and unity in the present, but we also look forward in hope to the future.
One of the pictures we have of the end of history, the new heavens and the new earth, when Jesus returns to set all things right, is the image of a great feast, a banquet. A fancy heavenly dinner party where we celebrate and say thank you to Jesus for setting the whole world right. You see, when we receive the Eucharist, we're getting an appetizer of that feast. And looking forward in hope, we can say thank you already now to God, not only for what he has done, but also for what he most certainly will do.
Yes.